Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like, to check the Jumbotron first, before attempting to eat a stack of Supreme nachos in one bite. Now you're just a meme that everyone shares on game day. Checking first is smart, so check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary, subject to terms, conditions, and availability. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
Ampire.
Hey babies, hey babies, hey babies, hey babies, hey babies. Hi everyone, hi everyone, hi everyone, hi everyone. By the time you listen to this, that was a big star today. I was invited to Good Morning Football. Can you believe that, Callow?
There you go. Look at you. Which call are they going to open up your intro with?
I don't know. As I'm taping this now, we haven't done it yet, so I don't know. I'm assuming Hail Mary, but, who knows?
That's what I would think.
Yeah. I mean, they're not going to do maybe my favorite, which was the Saints touchdown where Jameis dropped the ball, picked it up, and threw a dart between four people for a touchdown,
Yeah.
which is like on like the list of his highlights by a national organization probably wouldn't even make top 10, but was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen.
Right.
Right. Anyway, so thank them. I thank them in advance. I haven't done this yet, and it could blow up, but thank them for inviting me. I've always wanted to go on their show, so I'm excited to say hello to them. Anyway, let me start with some football, and then I want to get into crazy Kevin Willard, who's worn out his welcome, pal. He really has. Jeff Ehrman, you're going to hear from on the podcast, not on the YouTube version, because I taped it yesterday, and taped it before Kevin Willard did his wacko answer to a very straightforward question about his future or why he publicized all of this, and then pretended like he didn't hear it. So take that, keep that in consideration when you hear the interview I do with Jeff Ehrman, who does Inside Maryland Sports and has been all over what's been going on here. And so he hadn't heard that when we did our interview yesterday, but nothing's really changed, and you'll hear that. You just won't see it on YouTube. You heard it on the radio. You'll hear it on the podcast. Let me start with some football, though, because you always want me to. Did you see the crazy Dak Prescott to Cleveland rumors? That was... So, like when things pop up on the internet, you're like, well, that's just dumb. And it might be one of those bot aggregators or one of those people that just clicks on everybody's news and pretends it's kind of theirs in some way. And I'm like, or it's like non-sourced, like welcome to the world of media now where anything and everything could be real or not real all at the same time. It's very annoying, actually, for people who actually care about being right and don't want to get caught up in the wrong things all the time, or look at Adam Schefter's, X profile and see that the Giants just traded for Pat Mahomes. Like, it's just annoying. Anyway, this one was linked to a radio host, and I saw the clip of the guy, and I don't know him personally. I don't know his work, but I mean, I guess he's been there a long time. And he did a whole thing on, I've talked to high-level sources with the Browns, and they are in the midst of negotiating with the Cowboys to get Dak Prescott, and even went so far as to say this was part of the reason why Myles Garrett shut up and signed the contract, was because they know that a quarterback is coming, like a real quarterback, and it's Dak Prescott. And I listen to this and I see this and I go, all right, and this guy looks like old, like he doesn't know what a hot take is. So I'm like, so this is believable on some level. And then I go, wait a minute, wouldn't Dallas just pay him? What would be the dead money to do it? Oh, by the way, Deshaun, they're stuck with Deshaun for 2 more years. He's got a guaranteed contract. There is no getting out of it. There's no, they've worked around a little bit to, mess with the cap space for now. There's going to be a bill to pay at some point, but, there's no way around that they don't owe something like $30 million on their cap now this year. How could they field a team that has that much money allocated to a quarterback? And I'm like, so this can't possibly be real. And I assume it's not, right? Because, none of the major insiders were like, that's actually true. But it was fun for about 10 minutes.
One of the, I think it was one of the Cowboys reporters was like, I have talked to everybody. I'm throwing cold water on this. And then Rappaport retweeted her. So that was the confirmation to me that, this was not happening. And I'm with you. I don't know who this guy is, but you think somebody locally might have some sources. And I looked at it and I went, the logistics don't make sense. Dak's making a crazy number this year. So that means the dead cap has to be even more than that. He's due to make 60 mil this year on the cap. that's got to be a huge dead cap hit if he were to get moved. The logistics never made sense. That's what I really was going into was there's no way unless they're trading Deshaun for Dak, which even Jerry's not that crazy. Like, let's be real here.
No, I guess like, I would if like Cleveland's eating half of that salary.
Sure.
And I would go, fine, and you're just going to shelve him too because he's not going to play. So there'd have to be some major. But then, like, how does that make sense for Cleveland to do something like that? And then I was sitting there, and for a second I went, okay, wait a minute. They have to sign Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons is going to get a massive. He's going to surpass Jamar Chase, Myles Garrett. He's going to get the biggest contract ever by a non-quarterback. That's going to happen. The longer they wait, the price tag just keeps going up. But like, whatever, that's their problem. And I'm sitting there going, okay. Would they clear out Dak this year to get around to next year with a clean slate with Micah and just kind of eat it this year? And and that's what they're doing. They're just eating it this year. And then I'm like, are they stupid? Like, why would they? They would clear out their franchise quarterback, clear the decks, have an awful season just to sign one guy? Like, that doesn't even make any sense. So this guy, like, this reminds me a few weeks ago of the Ryan Burr, Trevor Lawrence to Pittsburgh thing, where Ryan's not even really in the media anymore. If he was, he's associated with golf. But I know him, and he's got credentials, and he lives down there. So I'm just like, somebody who works for the Jaguars just told him that. And he, wisely or unwisely publicized it, because it clearly wasn't very serious, because Trevor Lawrence had to come out and reveal, guys, I have a no trade clause and I'm not going anywhere. So whether they called or they didn't call, there's nothing to this whatsoever because I want to be here. And then I'm like, well, did the same thing happen here? Did this guy on Cleveland Sports Radio talk to somebody who doesn't really know, but like just kind of said to him they'd trade for him if they could get him, type of thing? Like, what happened here that this guy would go on the air and say that? Like, or was he catfished? Like, I can't even figure out where he would get this from.
This is like the old were you AI spoofed? Like, did somebody make up like a fake account that got you on the phone and decided to see how far they could take it? And maybe it worked. Like, it's the only thing I can think of that he was just totally duped into doing this.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I can think of.
Manti Te'o's girlfriend. Like,
yeah,
I can't figure out what happened here. All right. Anyway, so I don't believe it. And none of the insiders are even remotely touching it. And it doesn't even make any sense. Like, from a cap perspective, like, it makes no sense. Would Cleveland want to get him? Yeah, I guess. Like, that wouldn't actually shock me because of the team that they have. That actually wouldn't shock me. They'd want to acquire him. It just feels impossible within the constraints of the cap to do so. So whatever. All right. The other one that happened yesterday that I'm watching was the GM of the Vikings did an interview, and it wasn't Kevin Willard level, but it was close to, I'm not going to clarify anything for you other than to say, I love this when they do this. Our hope is JJ McCarthy is the number one quarterback on the team. So that is, to me, reading, you don't know that. I don't know why you don't know that. Is that because he's just not healthy enough to make that determination? Or you don't know because he hasn't practiced or played very much with the team? Like, that's the follow-up for me. Why are you saying you're not sure whether he's the number one quarterback? But that's the quote-unquote outcome that they want. And then when asked about Aaron Rodgers, he acknowledged that O'Connell, the coach, and Rodgers have what they called a good relationship, and they talk a lot. And he then, when pushed to, well, we thought you guys were out on him this year, he basically said, when you're talking about someone of this level, really closed doors, but this is what we're trying to do. And I don't know what to make of that. Like, this is why Rodgers hasn't signed with anybody else, because he clearly wants to go there. They're Villanova for him. He's waiting for them. Like, I don't know. I like, how could you read it? Or he doesn't want to play. It's like, that's what it reads like. I want to go there or I don't want to play, because why wouldn't he have signed with Pittsburgh by now otherwise?
I agree on that front. I will say of JJ, I'm not hung up on naming him the starter. Like, he hasn't practiced. He's still, like he already said, rehab's going fine. Remember last year, like, each franchise had a different way of naming the guys their number one, too. Caleb was named number one the second he walked in for his first rookie workout. Jaden wasn't named the starter until after the first couple preseason games. Drake May didn't become the starter until week 8 or whatever it was. So I'm not hung up on them naming him the number one quarterback. JJ even already said earlier this week that he was like, I haven't been named the number one, and that's okay. Like, I understand why I haven't. On the Rodgers front, this one was weird because I thought the door was closed, but clearly the door is not closed on this one. And,
no, it's not.
And maybe Rodgers is kind of doing what I think Cousins is doing, where he's waiting to see what's happening after the draft. Like, he wants to see where the dust settles on a couple other teams just to see what the whole entire landscape is. And, like, I keep pointing it out, and we talked about it a little bit. Does Purdy possibly get moved that opens up one more spot for either him or Cousins to go for? Rodgers isn't in a rush, I guess, because he just sees the couple of teams that are available, and he knows he can kind of just show up and, you know, be put into a system.
You think the Vikings want Purdy?
I don't think the Vikings want Purdy. I think Purdy's a movable piece to some of the other teams, but not to Minnesota.
Because if you're them and you trade for him, well then, like, you're basically shelving McCarthy.
Yeah, I don't see that.
It can't be them.
No, it's not them. But I look at, like, we talked about it, like Pittsburgh. Does a team like the Jets pop up? Does another team want to step up because they like him? You know, like, I would even make an argument, like, do the Raiders step up because that would be a starter that's longer than Geno? Like, I'm just saying, I think Purdy's one of the ones that's interesting here because until he signs that deal, I think you have teams that would knock on the door to try to trade for him.
Yeah, maybe. And like
that would open up.
Yeah, and then Lurking is Cousins. I mean, he's going to get dealt. Like, he's clearly getting traded. It's just a matter of to where, and he's being very patient about the whole thing. And he's waiting out. He's, like, waiting everything else out. All right, let me get to the NCAA tournament. Okay, first thing I want to get to is I love this story. Do you watch The White Lotus?
No, I don't.
Okay, White Lotus is fantastic television, right? It had a very disturbing scene in the latest episode that two brothers doing things that shouldn't be doing with one another. Okay. Like, enough said, right? It was disturbing, and there's context to it that's beyond they're not in love with each other, but whatever. It still was. You don't typically see this on television. It's part of the whole, if you don't know The White Lotus, it's just like very wealthy people go on vacation. They don't know each other. They follow the stories of these 3 or 4 separate groups of people, and they all either get intertwined or unravel. And every series, which is new every year, starts with, someone's going to die. You just don't know which character is going to die and how and for what reason. And it's made by Mike White. It's fascinating. Like, it's just beautifully shot. It's incredible, really. It's really incredible television. Anyway, the 2 brothers are with a sister and the parents. Parker Posey's getting a lot of publicity because she's put on this crazy North Carolina accent that you will hate in the beginning of the show. But by the middle of it, you're like, give her the Emmy. It's unbelievable, the character that she plays. And this is this extremely affluent, wealthy family that has a daughter that took them to Thailand on purpose because she wants to join a monastery there, and how they're trying to deal with this idea of they're an extraordinarily wealthy family that has a daughter that wants nothing to do with their affluence and can't understand this at all. And these 2 brothers who are experimenting in their own different ways. One's kind of alpha male-ish. The other one doesn't really know his place yet. And they end up having weird things go on between the 2 of them. So this family's completely unraveling. And at the same time, and I'm sorry if I'm spoiling the whole thing, the dad, who is really rich, finds out when they get there that the FBI has raided his offices back home. But because they're in Thailand, the family doesn't know what's going on. He's going to be arrested for embezzling like millions of dollars. So he's freaking out and losing his mind too. So the whole family dynamic is going down because they're from North Carolina. One of the subtexts that they talk about is the wife went to North Carolina and the husband went to Duke, and the guy's walking around with a Duke shirt on all the time and thinking about killing himself. And it came out today, Duke is pissed. Like, they're just like, we do not want to be associated with some psychotic character who's walking around dreaming about killing himself because he can't face going back to America and finding out that everything that he's built is a lie and his family's going to hate him and he's going to go to jail. And Duke is like, cease and desist, take it out of it. We don't want him wearing our shirt anymore. And honestly, there were a few times as a Maryland fan where I'm watching this going, this is incredible. There's this guy walking around in a Duke shirt and he's a criminal and he's the worst. He's a white collar criminal. He's the worst. And it's amazing. It's just amazing.
Yeah, I was going to say, the only thing I can think of in a sports context is like for TV shows and stuff are like comedies. I never see like a drama like that.
Yes.
Usually has a sports twist into it, right? Like,
yes.
Like there was that show years ago, Raising Hope. They were all Caps fans, and the Caps got some pub out of that show because one of the actors was a big Caps fan. I think like you think back to like Home Improvement with Tim Allen. He was always wearing Detroit Lions stuff. Like that was another one that way back in the day. But you never think of a drama like that in that context where he's wearing something like that.
It's funny because like the last couple of weeks, there were a couple of occasions where I like chuckled when I saw him wearing the Duke shirt because you never see them like positioned this way where it's like a prominent grad who's rich like turns out to be a nefarious criminal. And it's really amazing. And like the funniest part about them being like they're pissed, it's like cease and desist. The show's already been made. There's no taking it out.
Yeah.
You can't rewind that now. It happened. It's too late. But it's amazing. They're pissed about it. All right. The other thing, before I get to Jeff Erman, let me just weigh in on this for a minute, because what you're not going to hear us talk about was a press, because I taped this with him yesterday, obviously the games today against Florida. And, you know, he was kind enough to give me time yesterday. This was before Kevin Willard was asked in a press conference about essentially where does everything stand after you publicized what's going on with you in the program. You haven't signed anything. The AD is now gone. You seem to have set in motion this power struggle that you're winning. You're the king of College Park, except that you haven't signed a contract yet. We're waiting on you. And his answer to this very pointed and I thought proper question was, we need to figure out how to guard a player from Florida, ignoring it was ridiculous. He's the one that offered up all of the information about what's going on in Maryland in the first place. Then got mad that the media was asking him about it, pretending they made up a distraction, to now turn to this, which was obstinate assholery of the highest degree. Like it was, and like I know people thought it was funny, and it was funny, but it was ridiculous. Like it was utterly, utterly unprofessional and ridiculous. And if you don't want to answer the question, I get it. And I totally understand it. You made your bed, though, by revealing all of this stuff. Don't do that. That doesn't make you look good. It makes you look bad. It makes you look like you're trying to hide from something. And it makes you look like you and I aren't on the same page about anything. This is not well thought through. None of this is. What's becoming clear to me now is I thought it was. Now it's not. Now it doesn't feel thought through. And then all of these other insider people are posting videos going, Villanova's waiting for their season to end. So if he takes that job after what he did publicly to the program, wow, buddy. Like, you want to leave? That's within your right. You know, you want to leave for whatever reasons you have. That's within your right. But you did what you did to make it so that they would make you happy, only to leave a week later? Come on, man. Like, that's not right. But it would fall right in line with the way he acted in that press conference yesterday, which was entirely unprofessional.
No, unprofessional is the word that I would use here, because you cannot open up Pandora's box like you did last week. Then when you're asked about it, because there are genuine concerns about you popping up to Villanova, that you don't even acknowledge the question. You just start talking about Florida, which all that does is open up the floodgates of everyone going, you're not even going to deny that you're possibly going somewhere else. You're not even going to drop the typical, I'm focused on our team and on Florida tomorrow, like not even acknowledge what was just asked of you. This is a total miscalculation by him. And I don't really know how you come back from it. That's what I think I'm actually most jarred by with what happened yesterday in that press conference, in that answer, because it's one thing to make a mistake and then, you know, not acknowledge it or just kind of like shuffle it under the rug. the complete ignorance to leave the door open, that now everyone's going to talk about you again, about possibly leaving. I don't know if this is like a terrible masterclass on how not to gracefully exit any situation or just handle any kind of tough situation, period, to be completely honest.
It was really, it just, yes, it's the opposite of what you should do, especially if you're leaving, because all of this felt like a power play to get what he wanted to stay, which is what the whole conversation I had with Jeff Herman was about. Was like, can you believe he did this? Look how much power he got. What happens to locks now? You'll hear it in a minute, the conversation that we had. And then I saw this and I went, oh my God, like he just blew them up publicly and he's breaking up with them anyway. Whoa, man. Like you put all the dirty laundry of what you think is wrong with the program out there before the NCAA tournament, only to walk away from it whenever the ride ends. Now, he hasn't done that yet, so I'm not accusing him of it. But all of a sudden, this is a heel turn of heel turns, because I thought for sure this was all about he's just ceded all the power. It's an incredible power move. And now I'm not sure, and he's left it wide open. And if I'm Villanova, who clearly wants him, wow, watch out, man, because look how he's handling himself walking out the door to come to you. Look how he's handling himself.
I mean, we all know how this works. If he is actually leaving, Villanova doesn't care. They're going to tout it as they got this guy that just got Maryland to the Sweet 16. They deal with that later, so I'm never really too worried about that. But man, oh man, to like make the stand that you made and then go and handle it like that, I'm baffled, honestly. Because I think what happened too is I think everyone was on Willard's side at first. Like you and I talked about it. Like we thought if you're going to make this move, like to get more power in the program, you use the platform to do it. And now it's like, whoa, like, what are we doing here? Like this is getting a little bit too much out there. And now all of a sudden you're going to leave anyways. This is not how you do things.
It's not. And he's going to leave them in shambles if he does do this. And therefore he's enemy of all enemies for doing so. Like I'm with Loxley here. Keep it in house, man.
Yep.
Lock it up. You could stay, you could go. But this is the first time in a while I'm going, Loxley got this right. Like really right the other day to go, I'm not talking about any of this. And maybe he knew what we're hinting at now, where he's like, this isn't what it seems. Everyone seems to think that he's like power playing to get more position and get more stuff when in reality, he's just decided to blow up your personal life and walk out the door anyway. Yeah. It's pretty nuts. Like it's pretty nuts. So we'll see how it plays out. Anyway, I love the Terps. So good luck tonight. I hope you beat Florida. You'll hear Jeff Herman next if you're listening to the radio or the podcast. We'll be right back on YouTube after this. Brad, watch the show, ESPN 630 Sports Capital.
I was never really a runner. The way I see running is a gift, especially when you have stage 4 cancer. I'm Anne. I'm running the Boston Marathon, presented by Bank of America. I run for Dana-Farber Cancer Institute to give people like me a chance to thrive in life, even with cancer.
Join Bank of America in helping Anne's cause. Give if you can at BofA.com/supportAnne. What would you like the power to do? References to charitable organizations is not an endorsement by Bank of America Corporation. Copyright 2025.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
It's been an incredible couple of weeks on and off the court for the Maryland Terrapins as they get set for their first Sweet 16 game. And, well, Jeff Herman can tell me, I think it's 10 years. Is that right, Jeff? 10 years?
Yeah, 2016, just about. It's been a while. And even before that, it was another 13 or so years. So it's been quite the dry spell for Maryland.
It has. Jeff Herman, of course, founder of Inside Maryland Sports, Inside MD Sports. And obviously, not everything's about the game, which is what the focus should be. What have you just give me a general sense of what have you made of what's happened over the last week plus with the power struggle that is going on in the basketball program with Kevin Willard, Damon Evans out, etc.?
Yeah, it's been, I mean, I've seen some wild stories. I'm not sure I've ever seen one quite like this, Bram. It's been, it was unexpected too. You knew that things weren't great between them. It's been an open secret for a while that Kevin Willard was very unhappy with the amount of funding he was getting from the program and other requests that he had made from Maryland that were denied. And, you know, this is the sea change in college sports. You know, it's all about, I don't want to say it's all about, a lot of it is about money now. So you need money. Money is more important than ever. And he felt like, you know, he wasn't being given enough resources. It was really surprising to see him come out and air that out, obviously, in his open press conference of the NCAA tournament, you know, to get things out there. That was a calculated move to get this discussion going, clearly. And, you know, Damon Evans is gone now. He's left abruptly for SMU, leaving it, you know, an even bigger mess now because you don't have an AD to make the hire, or excuse me, to you know, talk to Willard and you know, comfort him, because coaches, they don't like uncertainty about who their boss is. That's something people don't really talk about much, but you know, it's a major thing. So long story short, which is obviously too late for that, but you know, they're going in this game with a lot of uncertainty. They seem to be, from what I'm told, they're dialed in and avoiding distractions, but you know, it's a very unusual situation.
All right, let me ask you to start with. Was Damon Evans on his way out, or was he pushed out? What is your reporting telling you about that?
I think he was mostly on his way out. You know, there's some possibility. He obviously had the offer in his pocket for a while. We don't know. He could have accepted it 2 weeks earlier and kept it quiet. But, you know, I think the only thing you can say with certainty there is that he knew it was time to go. He knew he had this situation with Willard being unhappy, and Willard has more leverage than he's ever had to, you know, exert that. Obviously, with this, you know, making his first Sweet 16 and all the attention and good vibes, you know, everybody rallies around the coach, obviously, when that happens, especially when you're as starved for success as Maryland is. So again, like, you know, I don't think, at first I will say I did think that he got pushed out, but I think, you know, I think Evans knew he had the Willard thing. Maryland has some NIL issues because it hasn't developed its attack well enough or fast enough on that. And then he's got a football coach who's coming off a rough season, who, you know, both of these are his hires, by the way, who's coming off a rough season and really needs to get, you know, 6 or 7 wins next year to keep things on track. So I think it was a timing thing more than anything for Damon.
Okay, well then let me ask you this then. They obviously had been talking about an extension, and it may still happen. But if Evans was on his way out, why was he even the point person to talk to Willard about the future if he wasn't going to be there and be the AD at Maryland?
Honestly, I think it's because he hadn't announced that he was leaving, you know, so it all happened so quickly, and he tried to quickly, you know, Willard said last week that Evans approached him with an offer, you know, in the afternoon on Selection Sunday, kind of a rushed situation after, you know, there had been some leaks put out there that Maryland was working on a big deal for Willard and with all these bonuses and improvements and stuff. And, you know, I don't think that was really the case. I don't think Willard, you know, I've talked to people who know, and they've said that Willard had not spoken with Evans about a new deal. So I think he was unhappy about that being put out there. And who knows, maybe that factored in a little bit to how aggressive he was in the press conference and things he said. So since with Evans gone, it's been school president Daryl Pines and then Brian Ullman, who's the head of marketing athletics, who've been negotiating with him.
Yeah, and I listened to the interview he did with Kevin Sheehan yesterday as we're taping this on Wednesday, and he said a couple of things. One, I'm staying for now, which, you know, I'll get to you in a minute, but he also name-checked this person in the athletic department that you just named. Is that the person who's going to be the next AD at Maryland?
You know, it's hard to say. He's been there. He does have, you know, foundational familiarity with the program. This is his second or third time there. He was originally, you know, a close assistant to Debbie Yao, left for a while, came back and was working for the university, and then switched back over to the athletics side of things. So you never know, but, you know, I would think in this situation you would likely go after someone experienced who can settle the ship, because it's just chaos. But who knows? Willard did talk him up quite a bit, so maybe there's a chance that's his guy, but it's hard to tell right now.
Okay, but if it's not him, the way this is sounding and playing out is Willard wants to handpick who that person is. Am I overthinking that?
It's definitely possible. I have no doubt that, here's what I would say. If he wants to stay, if he's sincere and all the things he said about he wants to stay as long as they do the things that he needs to, to build a high-level program, then yes, he could. Maybe he does have somebody. If this is all a leverage play and he's going to Villanova, then obviously that would rule that out.
Okay, so where are you as we sit here today about whether he's going to be if he's going to remain the head coach at Maryland?
Well, I'm going to do a shameless plug. I just wrote a very long non-subscriber, so it's free to read article on the site, InsideMDSports.com, pretty much breaking down everything I know, everything I think. But it's really hard to say. I'll tell you what people in the industry and at schools are saying, which is basically, if Villanova clearly thinks they have him, if they don't think that, then they're hiring a coach by now. We're 3 days into the transfer portal.
Yeah.
They haven't been very good. They need to get going on. I know they have a GM in place there who's doing some recruiting, but they really need to get going. So you're not going to wait 3 days into the portal unless you really are willing to sacrifice that because you think you have your guy. So there's two possibilities. Villanova has him and he's going after, and that's why he hasn't really committed publicly, or he has just absolutely snowed Villanova, and he's getting all the leverage in the world, and he's getting what he wants in Maryland.
Okay.
Which one of those are? I've kind of jumped back and forth. I don't. It's hard to make a final conclusion, but
Okay. So let me try to get specific if we can then. When he says he wants things from Maryland, what is he referring to that he wants that isn't there right now?
I think it's mostly funding for NIL. Like next year things are going to change. NIL won't be important. It's all about revenue sharing. I know he thinks that Maryland basketball is not getting enough of that $20 million budget that every school is allowed to have to pay players for revenue sharing. So he wants more of that, and I think he wants more of more staffing, a stronger effort to create NIL opportunities so that you can say, if you come here, you're going to have an opportunity to make money doing this and that. And, that's been somewhat an area where Maryland has really lagged in recent years.
Okay, so you agree with him that Maryland hasn't held up its end of the bargain in all of this?
Well, that really depends on expectations. I think he's had more resources than a lot of Big Ten schools because most of them are focused on football. But if you compare to some of the basketball schools in other conferences, and not just basketball schools, even SEC schools where it's all about football, have been spending huge amounts on basketball. That's why you saw so many teams make the tournament.
Yeah.
And so many big name coaches in that league. It's really ridiculous. So I think he wants to be more keeping up with the Joneses on that level. On the Big Ten level, I think he's been supported fairly well. But on the top 20-ish basketball level, he could definitely use more money.
Okay, and then let me be fair here. Don't they have some $50 million facility that's about to open? Isn't that happening on the behalf of the basketball program?
It is, but it's kind of funny, classic Maryland style for those who followed it over the years. They finally got around to that. They were the only Big Ten school without a practice facility, including Northwestern and some of the smaller name schools and other smaller name schools in the ACC too. So they finally decided to build that. Mark Turgeon pushed really hard and was a big piece of getting that done 4 years ago. And then right as they started building that, that was your practice facility was a huge recruiting piece. Right as they started building it, that became a much smaller recruiting piece because NIL started. So it was really bad timing with that. That is being built, and it is a good asset for them to have, but I don't think it's not. It has nothing to do with the current situation.
Okay. Let me ask you a big question about him, because he clearly made a huge leverage move. The AD is now out. Whether he was on the way out, he got pushed off the cliff by the coach publicly. I've never seen that before. Like, especially the day before the NCAA tournament, that was quite a move to make. And he's asking for a lot of things to happen. If they appease him, they are giving him a tremendous amount of power, don't you think?
Like, they are. They really are. And, he is a good coach. He's not, a national title winning coach. He is a good coach. But again, it's all about leverage. They know you already have instability with the AD leaving. You're coming off this great season, and the fans finally are getting back on board and will stay on board if you can keep it going. So you're going to desperately want to keep the guy who's doing it and do what it takes to get it. But the question really there is, obviously, they believe that they've given him into his demands. So if that's the case, he should still be the Maryland coach. Otherwise, it wasn't really about that.
Yeah, I mean, because the larger question here really is, here's somebody who's exerting, and if he gets appeased, is being shown that he has this level of power. Is he deserving of that? And maybe that's an unfair question to ask, but last time I checked, he's not Coach K. So I get he's got leverage here. And this is a tough question, I think, for you. I'm, putting you on the spot to answer something like that. But do you think he's deserving of having this level of power in any program?
I think it comes down more to just the situation. It's almost like a math equation, and he's got a big piece of the pie. Whether he deserves it or not, I don't know. But if he were to leave, all of a sudden you're already losing 3 of your starters, unless some sort of miracle occurs with their queen, which it won't. And then the other 2, who knows what they do? If he's gone, they could go, and then you're rebuilding your entire. You literally have no current players coming back, no coach, and no AD. So he has outsized value.
Okay, I agree with you. All right, I saw the press conference that Mike Locksley did, where I thought he was very wise to just say, I'm not going to say anything about this. Like, I'd rather just keep this all inside. What is your general sense of what's happened over the last week and what it means for Mike Locksley and his future at Maryland?
Yeah, that's a really good one. It's hard to answer that without knowing who the next AD is. Like, it was no secret that Damon Evans was a very football-friendly, supportive AD for Mike Locksley. So, as a football guy, obviously Evans played at Georgia and was the AD there. So, that was a huge complaint on the basketball side for years, was that, the football results weren't great, although they did go to bowl 3 years in a row for the first time in history. They were also severely underfunded during the NIL years, like compared to some of these Big Ten programs, just way underfunded. So it's hard to say really until they know, who they hire and what their priorities will be.
Okay, because I do want to ask you, what do you think of the job that he's done? I look at obviously he's a very good recruiter. I look at the results, and they're just not there, but you're painting a picture that that's not all him, that he might be fighting an uphill battle here. So what's just your general sense of the job that he's done with the Maryland football program?
Tough job, like nobody really wins often at Maryland. Let's look at the guys before him. Randy Edsel, DJ Durkin, both on and off the field, was a disaster. Really, Ralph Regan is the only one who's had success in the past 25, 30 years. And, you can definitely question some of his results. He's not gotten that big win over Penn State or Ohio State or Michigan that you have to get fans back on board. There have been a lot of disappointing outcomes against those teams. Last year was obviously really bad in the Big Ten. He said yesterday that, he felt like he lost the locker room a little bit because they didn't have enough NIL money, so the haves and the have-nots in the locker room, and that this year he believes with this, 13, 14 million, whatever he's going to have to spend, that he'll be able to compete. So, to wrap that up, basically he believes a lot of the struggles have been because the other teams are more resourced, but, three years of bowl wins never happened in school history. Obviously, he's lacking the level of big wins, so doing cartwheels, but overall, I think he's done a solid job. The recruiting program was a disaster when he arrived on and off the field. Jordan McNair, tragedy, and so. But obviously, I understand people's complaints about some aspects of his results.
Okay. All right, I'll let you go on this. Maryland is playing in the Sweet 16 against Florida. What do you expect?
But I think they have a real chance. I mean, there's a reason the point spread is only 6 points and not 11 or something like that. You know, Maryland's got a lot of talent in that starting five. The question is, well, there's a few questions. Florida's way deeper. So does that wear you down where you have, very little off the bench, a couple guys who are chipping in here and there? Can they rebound? They've rebounded really poorly lately. I think the margin against Michigan in the Big Ten semis was 40 to 19,
yes.
47 to 18.
It was bad.
Incredible. Yeah, they're good and Julian Reese to only get 18 rebounds, to get rebounded by 29. And then it happened again against Colorado State. They got worked on the glass again, and Colorado State's a smaller team, so I think that's, a concern. But this team, this starting five, everybody knows by now the Crab Five is the highest scoring in the country. Derek Queen is just a dynamic guy. I was saying during the last game, just give it to Queen and get out of the way, and that's what they did at the end, and that's a pretty good strategy.
Jeff Ehrman is the founder of InsideMarylandSports.com, InsideMDSports.com. You can check out all of his great work, get his newsletter, subscribe. He's on it, and I don't think you're done working over the next couple of weeks. We'll see what Maryland does in the tournament, but I think you're just getting started here, Jeff.
That's very likely, Brian, but you know what? It beats sitting around after an NIT appearance. So we'll take it.
Jeff, thanks so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
At Sierra, discover great deals on top brand workout gear, like high-quality walking shoes, which might lead to another discovery.
40,000 steps, baby. Who's on top now, Karen?
You've taken the office step challenge a step too far. Don't worry, though. Sierra also has yoga gear. It might be a good place to find your zen. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
Eczema isn't always obvious, but it's real. And so is the relief from Ebglyss. After an initial dosing phase of 16 weeks, about 4 in 10 people taking Ebglyss achieved itch relief and clear or almost clear skin. And most of those people maintain skin that's still more clear at 1 year with monthly dosing.
Ebglyss, lebrikizumab LBKZ, a 250 milligram per 2 milliliter injection, is a prescription medicine used to treat adults and children 12 years of age and older who weigh at least 88 pounds or 40 kilograms with moderate to severe eczema, also called atopic dermatitis, that is not well controlled with prescription therapies used on the skin or topicals, or who cannot use topical therapies. Ebglyss can be used with or without topical corticosteroids. Don't use if you're allergic to Ebglyss. Allergic reactions can occur that can be severe. Eye problems can occur. Tell your doctor if you have new or worsening eye problems. You should not receive a live vaccine when treated with Ebglyss. Before starting Ebglyss, tell your doctor if you have a parasitic infection.
Searching for real relief? Ask your doctor about Ebglyss and visit ebglyss.lilly.com or call 1-800-LILY-RX or 1-800-545-5979.
What a day it's been in sports. Let me get to a few other things that are going on. One, Stephen A. Smith and LeBron James are officially at war with one another, which is, I believe, the logical conclusion to his career, actually, because he is in LeBron's defense, and I have a lot of complaints about him throughout his career, but he's outside of he is one of the greatest players of all time, and I don't feel like engaging in whether he's the best ever because I don't care. But he's really, 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 really great player, undeniably great player. He was the first that showed up in this media atmosphere where, yes, people complained about players and people criticized them, but not to the degree that he's had to endure throughout the course of his career. And it shifted from when he was a high schooler to Twitter coming along to the plethora of new media, and everybody's used him as talking points for their content. And it's not pretty being him, honestly. And the logical conclusion is the godfathers of this, Stephen A. Smith, Skip Bayless, that at the end of his career would come to, I hate you guys. And actually, so like to me, while I could nitpick what he said on Pat McAfee yesterday, this actually feels like final act appropriate for him just going, you know what? This has been, maybe I acted inappropriately approaching you at a Lakers game, but this has been 20 years of you and what you represent coming at me without giving me really a chance to defend myself. And I'm sick of it and I'm done with it. And I'm going to blow you up when I go out the door and make fun of you and call you out for what you are, whether you think it's fair or not. So they're complete. And of course, Stephen A loves this. It's just more like, to LeBron's point, it's just more attention for him. And of course, he's putting out 8-minute retort videos back at him.
Yeah, no, I mean, when I look at this one too, I think this was a boiling point for LeBron, because, we've been in media long enough, sports media long enough, that like the typical line of, oh, I don't pay attention to that stuff, or I don't look at what they write or whatever. I would say yes, like baloney, most of them do. But at the same time, LeBron, you have to think about it. He can't look up at an ESPN screen anywhere, in an airport, at the facility, whatever, and they're talking about him, right? And that's where I kind of have landed on this. LeBron is going, you not only say what you want about me, you use me as an absolute pillar to hold up all of your arguments, the GOAT arguments, all of it. Then things, I think, boiled over a little bit with his son, which I think is really what kind of set LeBron off a little bit. And so,
yeah, I think he's just like, okay, you did it to me for all these years. I endured it. I'm not going to let you do it to my son. Whether you think you're within your rights or not, I'm just not.
Yeah, and so I think, like, what has happened here is LeBron's just gone, you know what, dude? Like, I'm just going to say what I want to say because you're going to talk about me anyways, too. So, like, who cares? And I think that's where LeBron has landed. And you know what? I think there's a piece of LeBron that's going to be kind of happy when he does retire. He's going to go, don't get to talk about me every day anymore. What are you going to start talking about? I think there's a little bit of a tinge of that with LeBron, too.
Yes. Obviously, like, him going on McAfee for an act, purposeful. It was a shot at Stephen A. Smith. Like, whether he has a relationship with McAfee or not doesn't even matter. He did it to singe Stephen A. Smith. I'm going to give this guy an hour and make him today, whether he is or he isn't already, the biggest star here. It's not you. It was a total, like, this is my way of getting back at you. I love that he never mentioned Skip, because Skip is really the originator of the LeBron hate cycle. And he just was like, you're irrelevant to me. Like, he could have said something, but he basically was like, you're going, why didn't you mention me in all of this? Right. And with Stephen A, like, listen, you get what you deserve. Like, you have built a career doing hot takes on people. He has probably gotten he's gotten more than any other singular athlete from you over 20 years. And I can understand what his boiling point is. And that's where we are. And of course, Stephen A doesn't care. He likes the attention. To LeBron's point, which the truest thing he said was, Stephen A was like so happy when this video came out last week because it gave him all the content. And he described it as him going on a Taylor Swift tour talking about it. It's amazing.
I mean, that's amazing. A little ridiculous. It's amazing. That's a little ridiculous.
Logical. We're in the full. This is World War III of the media. That's what this is.
Yeah, I mean, the Taylor Swift thing, that's a little ridiculous. With Skip too, by the way. I think Skip, though, has always been a WWE character when it comes to LeBron. Like, we all know he doesn't actually hate him that much. And what he says is so ridiculous that it's like a character. So I don't think LeBron has much beef with Skip. I think we all know Skip's doing a bit, as we would say. And I don't think LeBron has ever taken it to heart. When you're Stephen A and you have legitimate NBA sources, and when you talk about the NBA and people perk up when you talk about the NBA, it is a little bit different. That's why I don't think he said anything about Skip. I think Skip is just doing a character, essentially.
Let's see. Last couple things. Opening day today. O's and Nats, hon. Opening day today. I saw a lot of people. I saw a lot because of the injuries to the Yankees. They're loving the Red Sox coming into the season from the AL East. The O's didn't go get an ace, so it's hard to pick them, albeit their lineup should be great again. I would hope it won't go like it did late last summer into the early fall. But it's opening day. Hope renewed. Maybe Bob Carpenter gets, as he put it, a nice surprise from these young guys who are out there swinging the bats for the Nats this year, and they are a little more ahead of schedule than everybody thinks. But I'm excited. It's opening day today.
For the O's, my very fast synopsis of them is they're going to build on the fly again. I think we've seen this with Mike Elias. He adds what they need during the season. So we've also already seen it now where you had guys like Kobe Mayo come out and say they don't want to go back to AAA. I think the Orioles are going to be a work in progress all year, but they're already good. So they can still hit that 90 win, point and maybe, a couple games here, plus or minus on that number. So the Orioles will be fine. I'm not worried. The Nationals, I'm not seeing it with their pitching staff. Mackenzie Gore is going to be your ace. He was great last year, had like 33 starts, something like that. If he stays healthy, he'll be very good again. I don't see the Nats putting themselves over the top, though. They should have a pretty good lineup if all of these guys make the jump, like Cruz and Wood, and if CJ Abrams can bounce back. But the Nats are kind of just running it back with a couple added veterans. I don't see it with them. They can prove me wrong, but it looks to be more of the same for the Nationals.
I agree. And then real quick, Caps Wild tonight. What you got?
Ovechkin loves playing in Minnesota for some reason. So if you had to, say Ovi's going to score again, I would say this would be the game that he does. For some reason, he loves playing the Wild. He loves playing the Wild in Minnesota. So give me a Caps victory tonight. I think they bounce back off of that, overtime loss against Winnipeg. And then they come back and they play a bad Buffalo team on Sunday. So we'll see what happens.
All right. Talk to you all tomorrow. Brand Watch the Show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital.